Well, this is Sky News in just a moment, the press preview, as we take a look at the front pages. First, though, our top stories this evening.
The ayes to the right, 293. The noes to the left, 326.
The government gets its way on Brexit. Despite a rebellion, Parliament will not be able to veto the final deal. President Donald Trump's choice of Education Secretary is confirmed after an unprecedented knife-edge vote in the Senate. And Russia's President Putin has enacted a controversial new law to decriminalise certain acts of domestic violence. Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. In the next half hour then, we will see what's making the headlines this evening with the former Labour Special Advisor, Ayesha Hazarika, and the political editor of The Sun, Tom Newton-Dunn. Welcome.
Hello again.
Hello again, indeed. Front pages, then let's take a look at those, shall we? The Guardian to start with leads with Theresa May's decision to tell MPs to take it or leave it during a Conservative rebellion over Brexit. The Metro says overdraft charges at some banks can mean customers are forced to pay fees up to 7 times higher than those charged by payday lenders. Despite the ongoing process of Brexit, a proposed merger between the British and German stock exchanges will require EU regulatory approval. That's according to the FT. Britain could be facing its biggest tax bill in 30 years, according to The Times, as the government tries to eliminate the country's persistent budget deficit. The EU could be facing a new crisis, one that the Daily Telegraph says threatens the sustainability of the Eurozone after warnings that Greece's debts are on an explosive path. British Gas is planning a 9% price increase in energy bills for 11 million of its customers. That's in the Eye. The Treasury has cut national savings interest rates and premium bonds. The Daily Mail says that will affect 21 million savers. Daily Mirror leads with a revelation from a hitman who claims he knows who shot the TV presenter Jill Dando back in 1999. The Sun reports on the court case of Danny Cipriani. And winter isn't over yet, as the Daily Express warns that 10 days of freezing weather conditions are expected to tear across Britain. So Ayesha Hazarika, Tom Newton-Dunn are here. Not a lot of coverage of The Guardian's main story. May tells MPs take it or leave it over Brexit. Effectively, they've lost their veto to change our deal with Europe. But is it a big deal story?
It is quite a big deal. It feels all a bit processy tonight because it's votes and amendments about things which are really quite hard to get your head around. You know, for us political hacks, there was something like 180 different clauses that various MPs wanted to attach to this 137-word-long bill throughout the last 2 days, tomorrow as well, and 2 days last week. So it's all got a bit technical and processy. But the outcome about all this is all about what the deal will look like in 2 years or even 18 months' time. And that's massive. So what happened today was Theresa May had her first proper dust-up with Parliament in terms of who is going to be in charge of the shape of the deal. Is it Theresa May who's going to be able to finally sign it off and say, this is what I want it to look like? Or should Parliament be able to say, actually, no, we don't want that to happen, you're going to have to go back and get a better one? So she stirred them down today, and if you think of what she's up against, which is a pro-Remain Parliament, most MPs want us to stay in the EU. She doesn't have a majority for Brexit, let alone hard Brexit. Actually, she did a pretty good job getting this out of MPs and persuading enough of them, most of them, of course, who work for her and are Tory MPs, to vote for her and not shackle her, as she might say it, and attach conditions to the deal, which is, if we don't like it, you're going to have to go back and get another one. That, she says, would tie her hands in the negotiations.
The difficulty is, I suppose, is that Parliament really wanted not just to be a bystander in this, didn't they? They didn't want to be a spectator to this massive impact deal on the UK.
And the language was quite interesting because previously what had been said was that Parliament would have a meaningful vote, which denoted that they would be able to get into some of the guts of the detail. But clearly that is absolutely not the case. She is saying, either go for the deal that I give you or it's WTO. So people on the other side are really angry about this, particularly obviously the people on the Remain side, the Scottish MPs who largely voted against leaving the EU are very, very upset by this. They're kind of saying it's not really a fair choice. And there were a number of amendments put down. People are very angry, for example, the whole issue of the money that was put on the bus for the NHS, and there was an amendment about that. So I think Theresa May has won in the House tonight, but there's going to be a lot of pressure riding on her now for this, because it's like, okay, this is the deal. We wanted to have a thing about parliamentary sovereignty, but that is absolutely for the birds. That is not happening. It's essentially a fait accompli.
Yeah. To the Daily Telegraph, if you don't mind, because there are other existential threats beyond Brexit to the EU, aren't there? If you look at the top of the Daily Telegraph.
There are stories beyond Brexit. It doesn't feel like that these days. There are, and this one is possibly even bigger than even Brexit itself, which is the EU debt crisis, the sovereign debt crisis, which has been plaguing the EU since way back in 2009. We all thought it went away because all we talk about now is Brexit. In fact, here it is, it's still up and running and it's alive. And what's happened today is the IMF have come back and they've said, guess what? All this Greek debt that we're still having to pay off, we don't think we want to pay it anymore. The IMF, of course, are a third part of the creditors, including the Eurozone, the ECB and the other Eurozone members. And the IMF has said, you're going to have to let the Greeks off some of this debt because it's unsustainable and the Greeks are now going to repay it. Now, that goes down to Germany, in France, in the Netherlands. We've all got big elections this year, like a hole in the head. So we're going to get another massive standoff over Greek debt, which could potentially
and big elections
lead to
where
Brexit.
anti-EU parties are clawing into the real world of politics.
Of course. I mean, this is going to be grist to the mill of people who are anti the EU, anti the Eurozone. This will absolutely prop up anyone who is a leaver saying, look, this is absolutely the reason why we needed to get out of the EU, because of countries like Greece with their debt. But if we then turn to the story on the front page of the Times, which is about our own debt and our own burdens, we've heard from the IMF, now we're hearing from the IFS, saying that actually we are going to face our biggest tax bill for 30 years. So even though we are going to hopefully, as people tell us, have this kind of sunny uplands of Brexit and the economy is going to be good, actually we are still going to be massively over-leveraged. Yeah. We are still going to have lots and lots of austerity. So all the things that people want to see as, which actually was the undercurrent of Brexit, more investment in public services, more money for the NHS, more money for housing. Are we going to get that money if we are still massively over-leveraged in the economy?
Absolutely. So the real shock finding today from the IFS is that for the first time since the late mid-1980s, remember when Margaret Thatcher was taking a great scalpel to the state, trying to get rid of huge amounts of taxes which the various Labour governments in the 1970s had slapped on people. Around then, tax receipts were around 37% of national income. They're now reaching that level today. So we're paying more tax than we have done in 30 years. And why is this a problem? Well, the problem is that's okay, and that's one potential solution, voters could agree with the government to do. However, at the same time, spending on public services, NHS, pensions, the like, that is also going down. So where on earth is all this money going on? And the answer is debt. Yeah. Philip Hammond made a very, very big decision at the autumn statement, and we'll probably see more of it in the budget in about a month's time, to say, well, here we've got these debts. I'm not going to repay them anywhere near as quickly as George Osborne wanted to. I'm going to kick all this debt into the next Parliament and we'll repay it a lot slower. That's all well and good, but it all just builds up debt interest, the overall debt owing, which is separate to the deficit, and this goes on forevermore. And eventually, rather like in Greece, someone is going to call time on all this. It's I think, economists' greatest fear that at the moment, interest rates are very low all around the world. Paying back debts is easy to do. When those interest rates start going up, suddenly markets lose faith in countries and you've got a serious problem.
But for voters and for the public, the thing that is going to really annoy people is that all this means much more austerity. aside from Brexit, there are lots of other big things going on. For example, we've had lots of discussion about the NHS, about adult social care, about how we need much more money to go into mental health services, looking after our elderly. Where is the money going to come from?
Well, of course, that's a great debate, because you can either have lots more spending, but you then can't have less debt. So the money's got to come from somewhere. Borrow more, terrific, better public services. Tax more, terrific, better public services. You can't have low taxes
and
less
more,
debt
and more
great
spending.
public services.
Yeah, exactly.
And the three have really got to work together.
But what is interesting is how Philip Hammond has very much stepped away from George Osborne's sort of fiscal strategy, which is maybe why Osborne didn't vote.
Tonight.
Yeah.
We didn't mention that.
Yeah,
Osborne did a runner from the Brexit
well, he
vote
probably
tonight.
thought, well, look, you know, my legacy is sort of, you know, a forgotten thing now.
Yeah.
And all eyes on Diane Abbott on Wednesday.
Although she was around for the vote
We looked
today,
we looked it up.
believe.
There's
Yeah.
this brilliant app called Commons Votes, and you can look down and we all look, where did she vote? Did she vote? She did vote. She didn't have a
If you can't sleep
migraine.
tonight, that's what you should be doing. In the meantime, I apologise, I've got the Queen's persistent cough, haven't I? Apparently she wasn't really ill at Christmas. She just had a persistent cough that wouldn't go away. But it's been going round. And anyway, lots more still to come, including this man, Barack Obama. Should he be out there speaking against Donald Trump? Well, he did once, didn't he? But right now he's learning to kite surf. Back with more on that in a moment. Welcome back to the Press Preview, taking a look through the newspapers. I am joined tonight by the former Labour Special Advisor Ayesha Hazarika and the political editor at The Sun, Tom Newton-Dunn. Let's go inside the papers, shall we, to the Daily Mail. And this is the Speaker, Mr Bercow, who is getting a lot of stick for his comments about Donald Trump.
Yeah, he really is. So yesterday, I think he got some pretty favourable coverage in a lot of newspapers anyway for standing up against Donald Trump for being sexist and racist. The penny slightly dropped overnight a bit, and I think the realisation has sunk in on what he did, and really not the quality of what he did, and the point he was making, which a lot of people clearly agree with. It's just whether that's right for John Bercow to do it as the objective, independent Speaker of the mother of all parliaments. And the Daily Mail and other newspapers, I can tell you mine as well tomorrow, and we're quite excited about some of the other people the Speaker decided he would show hospitality to over his 7 years in counting in Speaker's House, including the Speaker of the Parliament of North Korea. And the North Koreans, it must be remembered, they're not exactly the nicest people in the world. They feed their opponents to dogs in pits, and they really make Donald Trump look quite cuddly. So you add those up with a whole vast load of slightly dodgy leaders from the Middle East, Indonesian presidents with equally weak human rights records, and the charge of hypocrisy sits pretty big and large.
I just think because things have happened before that have not been right, I don't think it means that like nobody can sort of put a veto on this visit now, and nobody can speak out about this visit. I'm really glad he's spoken out about this visit.
It wasn't just speaking out, was it? It was actually theoretically creating a situation where he can't do something.
Well,
it's not stating your view.
Well, I think, look, we are in a kind of post-protocol world now when you have the leader of the free world who just tweets, you know, randomly through the night. So I think, you know, we're in an age where, you know, everything is ripped up. All the old rules and all the old protocol are ripped up. So I think we should all stop being so stuffy and just sort of think...
Check you out, you mini Trumpite.
Exactly. I'm feeling all kind of
I've
like...
I've never heard such shall rot from my wonderful friend Ayesha, saying Trump is an ignorant, crass, brash bore. He was asked that in a great question the other day. We can all start behaving like that.
No, but I don't think we need to cling to like protocol. And just because like we've done it before, I think it's absolutely great that John Bercow has spoken his mind.
You are also a comedian, and Donald Trump and his team are proving to be a comic genius at large, aren't they? Let's take a look at this.
Well, and I'm telling you that I don't believe the New York Times reporting is accurate. How can it be accurate reporting, Glenn?
Glenn Thrush, New York Times, boo, go ahead. I want to go back to the issue of this travel ban.
It's not a travel ban. It's a vetting system to keep America safe. That's it, plain and simple.
I wanted to ask about the travel ban on Muslims.
Yeah, it's not a ban.
I'm sorry?
It's not a ban.
A major newspaper and a major network reported today that they were kept out of the loop.
You cannot come at me like that. I will put you in the corner with CNN.
We're not fake news!
We got something X, 3-4, capital T, capital P, 8-4. Hang on, wait a minute. That's my email password. Forget that one.
He got, hold on, guys.
Betrayal.
David.
That's a very hard word.
Why don't we just let me answer Glenn so we can be polite now, huh?
I'm here to swallow gum, and I'm here to take names. Now let me wave something shiny in front of you monkeys. I'll get back to you.
How did she do?
It was just absolutely brilliant. And what is so good about this, it's completely got under the skin of Donald Trump. Cal Surprise, a man with a big fat ego and a very thin skin. And apparently the thing that has annoyed him the most is that Sean Spicer has been played by a woman. That to him is like the ultimate insult. And what is brilliant now, apparently Rosie O'Donnell, who's another very good American comedian, has said she's ready to step up and play Steve Bannon on Saturday Night Live. It's just so good.
What's the amazing thing about Trump is, rather than Saturday Night Live, which was a slightly flagging show, it's been given a complete new lease of life by him. So he wakes up every Sunday morning, rather than complaining about the horrors of the world, Putin, ISIS, Syria, he sends 7 or 8 tweets out about Saturday Night Live. And you think, man, you're so thin-skinned. There are bigger things in the world to worry about.
Yeah.
And, also
And websites like the New York Times and people like that are saying they get a complete bounce when they're criticised.
that's the amazing thing. The more he says, don't watch Saturday Night Live, it's not funny, so bad, everyone just is like, we love Saturday Night Live. So it's,
meanwhile, the other superpower of the world, this is Russia. President Putin, or the Russian parliament at least, beginning to decriminalise elements of domestic abuse, which really makes interesting reading, doesn't it?
This is an absolutely horrifying development. An order has gone through which basically says beatings of spouses or children that result in bruising or bleeding but not broken bones are now fine as long as they don't happen once a year. It is absolutely terrible. There is a really dangerous, chilling culture of domestic violence in Russia. There is a terrible phrase which is basically like, if he loves you, if he beats you, he loves you. And they say that a woman dies every 40 minutes from domestic abuse in Russia. This is such a horrific development, and what it shows is the campaigners in Russia that have pushed hard for these domestic violence laws. This is the clock going back, and the clock can go back so quickly, and it will be so dangerous. It sends a very, very bad message.
And it's another hugely populist move by Putin, appealing to male egos and perhaps the more traditional female views of being Russian, making a big play how it's a Western imposition to suggest you shouldn't knock hell out of your wife. It's really properly gut-wrenchingly sick stuff. And Russian newspapers talking about women should be proud of the bruises they have because it shows their men are passionate, and also that they beaten women have a valuable advantage in they give birth to boys more. It really is quite extraordinary. Of course, this is the man that Donald Trump wants to be best friends with.
Well, all over the front pages, of course, former President Obama, he's absolutely everywhere. Not surprising, really, because he's off learning to kite surf.
And if you go to the Daily Mail, you'll even see a picture of the former president in his knickers, of all things.
Knickers where?
Middle one. Is there knickers
I don't
or
think they're
swimming
knickers.
trunks? Or...
They're
It's not
more
quite the
like
same.
sort of lycra. They're not knickers, Tom.
No.
Anyway, so he went on holiday with Richard Branson. Richard Branson, straight after he had to vacate the White House to President Trump, Richard Branson said, hey, come to my island, Necker, in the Caribbean. No idea why
you say
Obama... Necker. Knickers. Knickers in Necker. You see, that was my joke I never thought of. Anyway, so Richard Branson, being the shy and retiring sort, having got Obama out in his knickers on Necker, decided he'd just write a massive blog about it and post all these pictures of his new BF, where they had fascinating competitions, like, for example, challenging each other. Branson challenged Obama, I bet you can't learn to kite surf before I learn how to foil board.
Yeah, it's all beyond us, isn't it, really?
It really
that,
is.
That
I mean,
billionaire
Although
lifestyle.
That's a
Obama is
lifestyle
still,
I probably will never have.
Obama
tragically.
is still the coolest
Back on
kind
the
of
lottery
politician.
ticket.
Very few politicians, even formers, could get away with being photographed in his
It's that
knickers.
photo, isn't it,
In his
really?
knickers.
Yeah, lovely.
At Necker.
Grundy's.
Knickers in Necker, that's it.
Undercrackers.
That's the headline we should talk
No.
about as well. Ayesha Hazarika, Tom Newton Dunn, as ever, thank you.